see what happens now. Okay. I can see you. Okay. Lord, I tell you, technology, technology, technology. All right, let me all right, welcome everybody. I'm gonna double record this because technology is being very unkind to me right now. So let me make sure I'm recording it. Yes. And I'm going to share this to my page. Still trying to get it to pull up on my device. Oh, it went directly to my page. Okay. And okay. All right. This is a very unique experience for me right now. Anywho, we're so grateful. Welcome to Barbara's Lighthouse, you guys. Y'all just please pardon me with my tech issues. It is an undertaking, and I'm probably going to use a different platform. But anyway, tonight I am very excited about our first kind of talk with professionals and specialists in the areas of behavior support, mental health support, health and wellness, so that we can provide some strategies and techniques and tools to help empower our community. So tonight, being that we're about to begin school in our local district, I know several other districts have already, students have already reported, but in our district, we have students who are about to report back to school. And so with that being said, I wanted to provide families and students alike, even educators, with some strategies that can help enhance student success this year. I know we focus a lot on academics, and that's very important. But in the line of work that we do, myself, along with my guest tonight, we work a lot in alternative ed, and we work with students who have special needs, special behavioral needs. And so I wanted to bring on my guest tonight. She has been in this field for many years. We work really well together. A lot of our work meshes, actually. And I couldn't think of a better person to bring tonight to share with you how we can help develop strategies to be proactive with supporting our students and how we can support them with having a very successful school year and being proactive, not reactive, but not waiting until something happens, but right at the beginning, the dawning of the school year, what can we do to set our students up for success? So tonight I have Miss Ayana Muhammad. I'm going to let her introduce herself, and then we're going to begin with a round of questions. If you have a question or, just anything that you would like more clarity on or some insight, go ahead and post that in the comment. Even after this live ends, I'm going to post this to YouTube, and you can still comment and ask questions, and I'll get notifications, and we'll still reach out and provide you with answers to the very best of our ability. So with no further ado, I want to bring to you Miss Ayana Muhammad, and she is, I'm going to let her introduce herself, the work that she does, and then we're going to get into our discussion for tonight.
All right. So good evening, everyone. I'm Ayana Muhammad. I am a licensed marriage and family therapist. I've been in practice for about 7 years, and I have a combined over 20 years of experience just with behavioral health, education, alternative education, juvenile justice, just a mountain of different things. And so I currently also work in the school system in the student discipline department. So I deal primarily with behavior. And so I'm excited tonight just to kind of share some things with you all about how to prepare or deal with behavior challenges, etc.
All right, sounds good. I'm still trying to get this shared out. Let me share it to the page. We're going to begin our questions. I see some of you already jumping in. So my first question to Ms. Muhammad, first of all, thank you for being our guest tonight. Thank you for the work that you do. I know firsthand how you go hard for our students and our parents. And so I want to just kind of dive in and provide our community with some resources that they can use to help empower their students. So what inspired you to pursue a career that works primarily with special needs students?
So growing up, my mom, she's in ministry, and I've always seen her jump right in to help people, just anybody in trouble, anybody in need. And so that kind of just resonated with me. So at a young age, I started working with at-risk youth at the Johnston YMCA here in Charlotte. I'm a Charlotte native, born and raised. And so that was my introduction to it. And over that time, I just developed a passion for helping our young people to blossom and be the best versions of themselves that they can be.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So let's dig now into the meat. What are some of the core behavioral challenges that you've seen in your line of work with some of our students?
So what I do see a lot of, and it's normally with the younger age group. So I would say the K through 2 is where I see a lot of aggressive behaviors, normally rooted in some type of trauma. It could be, misdiagnosed, undiagnosed, but it showcases itself in the classroom by way of disrespectful communication. It could be withdrawal, or not, being able to complete tasks, or not having an understanding of what is even being taught, because there are certain social and emotional things that are missing for that child. And oftentimes when they enter into the classroom, we're there for academics, so people don't pay attention to that. And so that just causes the problems to even blossom even more, because we're not paying attention to that. We're looking over it and we're jumping right to these academic skills, whereas this person does not know how to self-regulate a normal emotion, but I'm expecting them to come up in here and do this math problem or read, this book, etc. So the main things I see a lot of are physical and verbal aggression.
Okay. And it's interesting that you said the younger babies, like you would think we would see more aggressive behavior in some of our older students, which we do, but it's interesting that you say you have noticed and observed more, concerning behaviors in our younger babies. And I think that's a grave concern, because if we're not addressing those behaviors at that age, then we literally set ourselves up for failure with regard to how we can provide a wraparound for that student as they get older and those behaviors become embedded in the core of their personality. So I think it's very important that you lifted that concern. And you talked about some of the challenges that are typically manifested in a classroom setting, the inability to perform academically well because of the challenges with the behaviors. And I also like the fact that you said that some of the diagnoses that our students have are undiagnosed. And talk about that. Talk about just kind of put yourself in the mind of a child, or in the space of a child, and what does that look like for a child who is truly struggling? Because we like to say, oh, that's a bad kid, oh, they off the chain, but what does that look like for a child to have a need? And when I say special needs, I'm not saying that, they're just, what I'm saying is that there is a need that goes above and beyond what we see in some of our average students. And it's okay. We need to identify it and provide support. But what would that look like for a child who has a special need and those needs go unmet, or there's a diagnosis there that has not been realized?
So to kind of, I guess, bring a picture to it, just imagine if, let's say, if I flew you to China and I dropped you off, and you don't speak any of the language, you don't know where to go, you don't know how to navigate, and I say, okay, I'll see you next week. So that's the same experience that a child has in a classroom setting that does not have the skills to self-regulate, that may be dealing with, traumatic home environments, but they don't know how to express that. But I'm coming at you with all these demands, and I'm telling you to do this, do this, do that. So it's almost like I'm speaking a foreign language. And at some point, that frustration is going to grow and you're going to react because I can't get my needs met because I cannot communicate with you.
Wow, that's a great example. That that puts skin on the bones there for me. So okay, I'm a parent. Well, I am really, but I'm a parent with a student who is struggling with behaviors. Maybe there is trauma at home. What do I do? I'm getting phone calls every day about Johnny. And if your child is named Johnny, I'm not trying to pick, that's just a name that I always use, but I'm that parent that has Johnny at school who cannot self-regulate. And I'm receiving phone calls every day. We need you to come to the school to talk to Johnny, come get Johnny, Johnny suspended. What can I do as a parent to support my child, of course, but how do I build a connection or build a relationship with my students, school, or teachers, or community, so that I don't result in frustration and then I withdraw to where I'm blocking the phone number and I don't want to deal with it, you know what I'm saying? Because it happens. We see that, like, don't call me, deal with them till they get home. So what do I do as a parent? Like, what tools do I need?
Okay, so as a parent, and I get it because I deal with it on both sides. Okay, so I can see how a parent could withdraw because, yeah, nobody wants to constantly hear negative feedback and communication about their own child, especially if they're, trying to do the best that they can. But I will say that the only way for lasting and meaningful change to happen, you have to collaborate with that school entity. So even though it may be hard to do that, I would suggest making sure that you're present. Okay, so if you do get a phone call, engage in the phone call, but set up to meet face to face, because sometimes over the phone or even text, or I think they use different platforms sometimes to communicate stuff to parents, you can misconstrue the tone just based off of somebody sending you a text message or email. But when you have face-to-face interactions, a lot of times it changes the entire dynamic. And so I would say parents just being willing to be vulnerable, that's number one, and not, because I know you can take on a context of shame, because nobody wants to be seen, oh, well, yeah, that's the mama of little Johnny who always cutting up. But it takes a village. It takes all of us. And so you got to kind of throw your pride to the side and say, look, this is what I need to do for my child. So let me go in here. So I would say the biggest thing is being present, because when you kind of write it off and just ignore it, you give the school leeway to do whatever. And so now your voice is not heard. And so I would say if there's a particular person you don't vibe with, find somebody. It got to be somebody in that school that you can develop a relationship with, even if it's the cafeteria manager, somebody that has a connection that can help you navigate that. Get you an advocate. Sometimes it takes you having someone that is in your corner that you can bring with you to meetings so that you feel empowered and not feel like, the school is ganging up on you. So if you need to take, great grandma, your aunt, whoever to these meetings with you, build your team in your village. But I would definitely say, be in a collaborative spirit and find somebody in that school that you connect with so that you can get done what you need for your child.
You brought up a good point about the shame, the essence of shame. And in restorative practices, we talk about the compass of shame, and that's another conversation for another time. But that is a thing. I know we see that on a daily basis. We receive phone calls from parents and they're on 1,000 because, they're tired of the phone calls. They're frustrated with the kid. They've got to work. The school is on them. And, we have to have safe schools. Totally understand that. But it does somewhat put the parent at a disadvantage because they may not be aware of supports available at the school. And I'm so glad that you mentioned the advocates, because the school system in and of itself is not the enemy, but it can appear very threatening and very intimidating when you just don't know. It's set up, you walk in and you're a guest, but your baby is in somebody's classroom, but you're visiting your child. And it's a very, it's uncomforting, a very uncomfortable feeling. But I like the fact that you said that, parents can find an advocate. So can you talk about like how can parents get more involved? I'll talk about, just briefly my experience when I thank God all of my children graduated from public school, with little to no incidents. A few of them was knucklehead, but it's okay. But for me, I was heavy in terms of family engagement. I was involved. I was the cheer mom, football mom, band mom. I mean, you name it. The kids just kept
Right.
dragging me into things. And it wasn't so much say drag me into it. I just knew that I needed to be there to support them. And yes, it took time away. It took, especially your working, family, it does take time away, but I knew that I had to make that sacrifice. I realized not every family can do that. Not every parent can get away from work, or, that their schedules may not allow that. But as you stated, we must embrace that village mindset to where if I can't get to Johnny's football game, cousin so-and-so, can you go? Auntie so-and-so, can you go? So that when that child is involved in, extracurricular activities or athletics or clubs or what have you, they look up and see someone that they can connect with, that builds their confidence, that bolsters their self-esteem. But talk about how parents or family members can become more involved. Like what advantages is it for a parent to be involved, and what opportunities are there for parents to get involved?
Okay, so I know, and I'm speaking more so on an elementary level right now. It looks different as you get to middle and high school. But one of the basic things you can do is become a volunteer. When you volunteer at your child's school, it opens up a different side so that you're able to come in and see the interworkings of the classroom. You can learn the culture of your school. Because sometimes the school culture can impact how your child is acting as well. And so it just gives you more insight as to what I can do. But when you're there, when you're present and people see that you are involved, for lack of a better word, some people who may not have good intentions for you, because I can't say everybody who works with your child has good intentions for them. But when you are present, it makes it lessens or minimizes that happening, because now these people know, well, so-and-so's mama, is here a couple times a week. So, you will get a little bit more support because they know that you're there, versus a parent who never shows up. And I do understand, like, some people's schedules won't permit that, but with that village mentality, get your brother or your sister, somebody to come in there and be present. But it also means a world to that child. I know when kids see anybody coming to visit them, or even if it's just to have lunch, I mean, they just light up. It makes so much of a difference because they know that even though, like, school may not be the best place for me all the time, but I know this person right here has my back. And you can see a complete shift in how they respond to what's being presented just because that person came and sat and had lunch with them. So that's just a bare minimum way to get involved. There's PTA and other things, that takes a little bit more commitment. But at the basis of that, if you just volunteer and come in there once a month to come read books in your child's class, or, assist the teacher with making copies or whatever that might look like, that shows a sense of community right there to your student.
Good stuff. Good stuff. And I think it's also important to share out that families are always welcome at schools. There's always a need for volunteers. There's always a need for help. So if you're that mom, that uncle, that grandmother, what have you, you are welcome. And so, build, like Ms. Muhammad said, just, begin to build, especially at open house, start making your connections there and start ask the principal, ask the secretaries up front, what can I do? What are some of the needs? And I can attest to that as a mother when I raised children, that the relationships I had with the staff, relationships I had with the teachers, it just enhanced how they service my children. And there will be times when they would act up And they would call me, hey, you know, we didn't write this up. It's not documented. We just wanted to let you know so-and-so had a bad day or what have you. And because we had that relationship, it didn't elevate or didn't escalate to another level. We talked about it and we addressed the issue and we moved forward. So let's talk about some behavioral interventions. Let's just say that, you know, we talked about students who have these challenges and who have these unmet needs. And let's look at those students who need that extra set of hands, need that extra bit of support. What are some behavioral interventions that you can share that when parents hear it, it doesn't sound so alien to them or so foreign, but you know, we want to, you know, because some of these terminologies, even as educators, I mean, there's an acronym for everything. And so when you're in that IEP meeting or 504 or a behavior intervention or this discipline team meeting, there are a lot of terminologies that can sound like your child is on his way to jail. You know what I'm saying? It can really sound intimidating. So we want to kind of soften the language a little bit and just sort of give you, now this may not apply to every district. Every district is specific to how they administer their supports or discipline or what have you. But what are some examples of some behavioral interventions that staff can use to help their students modify their behavior?
Okay, so a lot of things are very simple in nature in regards to interventions. So the most simplest intervention, and this is at the when I say core, I mean these are things that within the context of a classroom that the entire class should be receiving. So a basic intervention is just positive reinforcement, and all that is if I am seeing the desired behavior, then I'm going to praise that student for that. Now, that can be by way of verbal, it could be by way of something tangible, or it could be allowing them a special activity or even allowing them to come up and do something in front of the class. But that takes the teacher just kind of understanding what motivates this student. But a lot of times what happens is on the flip side, we end up providing negative reinforcers, meaning every time I see you do this thing, I'm calling it out, I'm calling them out. So what that student starts to learn is that, okay, well, I'm seeking attention. So I know every time I do this, Miss Johnson about to call my name. And even though it's bad, all eyes on me. So if you reverse that, so that even if it's the smallest thing that you did correct, calling it out. Like, Johnny, I like the way you came to and sat down when I asked everybody to come over. That's very simple, but over praising or noticing those things will encourage that student to do more of that because they want that. They're seeking that. So why not give it to them in a positive way? So that's a simple thing. Now, if there's, more intense behaviors happening, and I can't speak for all school systems, but I can speak for, the Charlotte area. There should be some type of tiered system that, that is available for that student. So if you are the parent that is constantly getting calls, I would say you initiate that. Don't wait for the school to come to you and say, oh, we need to do X, Y, Z. If you've gotten 5 calls for 5 days of the week, that's an indicator, okay, something is happening with my child. Let me get ahead of this now. So you can just request, okay, that I would like to start intervention. So a simple intervention would be something that we use is check in and check out. That is a simple process of having a trusted adult, okay, and this wouldn't just be anybody doing this. This will be a trusted adult that student has some type of relationship or bond with. And so that person periodically has times where they check in with that student. So they may pull them to the side, and it can be, sometimes it's brief. It's just a, hey, hello, how you doing? How was your night? And sometimes it may go more in depth depending on what the response is. So the check-in, check-out process is just giving them an opportunity to express themselves in a neutral space. And if there are issues, then that adult will be equipped to take it further if need be. Okay, and then get them right back into the classroom environment. And then the checkout part would be, okay, we're at the end of the day. How did things go? What were some things that worked? What were some things that didn't go well, so that now we can set some goals for the next day. So that's just a simple, suggested intervention. There's many, and it just depends on what the behaviors are that are being exhibited. Like, so for example, if there's lots of aggressive behaviors, some of the interventions would be more linked to teaching that student emotional self-regulation skills. So there's a thing called zones of regulation. It uses colors to associate with what is going on. So if I don't know how to express myself, I'm giving that person the tools to be able to identify what's going on so that I can tell you versus me flipping this desk over. I can tell you that, my friend beside me, push me or whatever. And now I can tell you I'm upset because they did this versus me throwing something across the room because I don't know how to tell you what I'm feeling or even identify what is actually going on. So those are just low level interventions, and it, as the behaviors, I guess, increase in intensity, then there are different types of interventions that even go all the way up to the level of someone in the school being able to provide actual counseling services by way of CBT, which is cognitive behavior therapy. So there's resources available, there are things available, but a parent just being in the know, you're able to request these things and not just let the school plan out. So collaboration is key. It's definitely key.
I want to talk about what I'm seeing, and I know you're seeing the same thing. We are seeing so many angry students, and I'm talking more of some of the older kids now, the high school kids. They're very angry. But what concerns me is they don't identify as being angry. Like, it's like you said, they don't, I think there's a deficiency in that self-awareness or self-management piece to where they cannot identify that they're angry, but yet they're manifesting anger, symptoms of anger. So how do we help students, first of all, identify with them being angry? And I say that because many times when I'm servicing students or, providing interventions, and when I get to anger management, I always get stuck. Because one of the things I'll say is, what are your body's anger cues? How does your body communicate to you that you're angry? And they're like, what? I don't know. I just stopped talking. And they don't even recognize that that's their self-defense mechanism protecting them. I shut down, or, I'll never forget one student said, I just start shaking my leg. And so, so the nervous system is communicating to, each of us, but particularly our students. The nervous system is letting you know something is wrong, danger is ahead. But what I'm finding is they don't know the cues. So how can we help students and their parents recognize that I'm angry, number one, and then how do we provide them with techniques or coping skills to deal with the anger? Because it's okay to be angry. That's a natural emotion, like being tired, like being hungry, like being sleepy. It's a natural emotion, but anger can be a very dangerous emotion when it's unregulated. So how do we help students? What's the importance of helping them identify anger? And then how do we help them develop coping techniques to help them deal with that anger?
Okay, so I would definitely say that's a loaded question. And so it definitely is going to take at home and at school kind of working on both sides. So there has to be more conversation around emotions. Like some people are naturally taught to ignore emotions, push that to the side, especially with males, man up, you don't need, so it's not something that's common. But at home, I would say as a parent, start having developing a culture in your home where, okay, we have family meetings. We're going to sit down and we're going to talk about feelings and emotions. Okay. Not just you're going to tell me, oh, everything was okay. What does okay mean? So I say it starts with just general communication about what something means, because like if I say I'm okay, that might mean something different to me than it means to my child. So, going in depth to ask them. But as far as equipping them with the tools, I would say, even if you don't know where to start, Google anger management strategies. Okay. Stuff will pop up. Read it. Y'all talk about it together. And sometimes, as the parent, you may be dealing with anger management as well. I know in teaching interventions, a lot of times when the parent is in there with the student, they dealing with the same thing. So
Yeah.
how I'm gonna help you? Because it's in me too.
Right.
So so starting with the basis of just researching basic interventions of how to help me recognize anger. I would even say, if you notice that there's something that you're dealing with, like keeping a small journal to jot down what is happening inside my body. So like you just mentioned, when you ask, well, what are some cues? And they like, I don't know what you're talking about, because nobody ever gives a person the opportunity to talk about that. So it's like, okay, let me keep it down, because once you start to know what your triggers are, then you'll know what to do so that it does not rise to the level that gets you into some trouble. So education, seeking help. So if you don't know what to do, you might have to reach out to a professional. Okay. Now on the school side, there are, depending on what level you're at, there are resources within the counselor that can assist, with anger management. Within the classroom setting, and I'm speaking now on the elementary level, because I think something, but they don't, because you don't see any posters about self-regulation, recognize, you don't see that, but it needs to be there. But I know in most elementary classrooms, they have some type of cool down corner. They have stuff posted with steps of, how to work through a problem, or if I'm experiencing something. But the tricky thing about anger is, most of the time it's something else underneath. And so that's what we have to learn to identify, is what is underneath the anger, because that's driving it. But most of the time we don't have a clue what that is. We just know I'm mad and I'm ready to tear something up. I'm ready to cuss you out. Okay. But I'm ready to curse you out probably because you hurt my feelings. I'm hurt, or I feel disrespected, or I feel belittled, but we don't have the language for that. So that comes with teaching. And so as a teacher, and I'm gonna go to the classroom now, even though you're there to teach academics, you have a responsibility to address your students' social and emotional needs. And the only way you're going to do that is by having conversations about feelings and emotions. It has to become a part of your classroom culture. So the kids can't look at it like, what's she talking about today? This is something you got to have embedded within your routine, so that they know it's safe. I feel safe to talk about this in here, and I guarantee you will have a much smoother school year if you learn your students from that perspective, versus trying to, for lack of a better term, make them do things. Because oftentimes we get into this authoritarian mode, and that's what parents too. It's like, I told you to do it because I told you. Okay. But sometimes just letting someone express something or how they feel, that will help them gain an understanding of it, and you'll get more compliance. You won't get this defiant pushback, because I feel heard now. So yeah, I'll go ahead and, turn in my homework, or I'll go ahead and clean my room. But if I'm always, coming at you in a way of, because I said so, and there's no room for you to express nothing, then you're going to build some resentment and anger just from that, because you never feel heard. Yeah.
There was a work that I did. I'm sure you did it too, where we would sit students down in a circle, and we would call it an SEL circle, or social emotional learning circle. And we would have conversations with kids. And what I loved about it, I used to love circle time with them because it would always intrigue me that they didn't know how to emote. They could not identify their emotions. And so we used what we called a feelings chart. And it was, child friendly. And it was like a little poster board of emojis. And they were all categorized in different quadrants, 4 quadrants, yellow being what, happy, red being angry, green being peaceful, blue being meh, And so it was a very unique way to help students identify, because if they ask any student, how are you? I'm all right. I'm okay. And all right and okay are not emotions. You know what I'm saying? You can be all right and you're about to tear a room down, you know what I'm saying? So it's so important. And I love how you mentioned that, parents can Google this type of information. But again, the reason why I wanted to host this type of platform, because you don't know what you're looking for. And sometimes you just don't know what you don't know. And again, you are being flooded with, or your student has this issue, or your student did this again, or your student, or we're going to do, and again, I'm using restoratives, we're going to do this to the kid, you know what I'm saying, and being punitive. How do that student has 180 days to navigate through a school year, 180 days, and then 6 hours of each of those 180 days. They're going to be in somebody's classroom, in somebody's hallway, or in somebody's office. And so we can look at a pattern of what happened last year, and we can suck it up, buttercup, and say, good luck. Or we can say, hey, you know what, this year, I'm going to do something different. I'm going to be more intentional about paying attention. I'm going to get ahead of the game. I'm going to make alliances and build networks and relationships with staff at the school, so that my student, and when the student goes through, the whole family goes through it. I mean, they're not going through these types of conflicts and crises alone. The whole family is going through it. So I encourage, every parent, every family member, this may be a hard conversation, because like Ms. Muhammad said, no one wants to have the child that has the problem. And I don't mean to sound cruel when I say that, but, and we all have problems to a greater, lesser degree, but, no one wants to be that parent that everybody, oh, here comes so-and-so, oh, there she go. There is a degree of shame there, because I believe every parent wants what's best for their child, regardless of their quirks and hangups or whatever. Every parent wants what's best. And it is hurtful. It is shameful. And it can put you in a very low, a negative emotional space when your child is struggling and you feel like, I don't know what else to do. I don't want to put my child on medication. I can't afford therapy or what have you, and I feel like the school is more so against me than for me. And, as a parent, you really can feel frustrated. And so my heart really goes out. And so that's why I wanted to just kickstart this discussion to, first of all, acknowledge what it is, that there are frustrated parents, frustrated family members, frustrated students that, have learning, needs or special needs or behavioral challenges that may be trauma, triggered by trauma, or, maybe some other things. We're not sure, we don't know what a diagnosis is, but the gist of it is, first of all, to acknowledge, it's not going to go away. And especially like Ms. Muhammad said, we're looking at these behaviors at a very young age, K2, they're not just going to go away. We have to be proactive, and we have to put strategies and supports in place, and it's going to require work. And it's better that we do the work now than later, when the stakes are so much higher and the damage can be more destructive. So it's better to put those supports in now. We've got a couple of minutes left. I want to talk about students who are exhibiting extreme aggressive behavior. Extreme aggressive behavior. I'm talking about students who are even aggressive at home, not just at school. Because I know sometimes a class environment, a school environment can bring out the worst in our students if they feel that they're being bullied or picked on or not getting their needs met. But I'm talking about now students who are aggressive at home. Like even some parents may be afraid of their own children. Siblings are afraid of their own child. So what do we do with that? If we have a student who is exhibiting highly aggressive behaviors at home, what does that look like when that student gets off the bus and walks on the campus?
Right. So students who exhibit highly aggressive behaviors definitely, as the parent, okay, so let's say nothing is in place. Okay, so you continue to get calls or they're getting into, suspensions and different things because of these behaviors. You definitely want to initiate, and I'm saying initiate because a lot of times when the school takes it into their hands and the parent is not involved, typically sometimes they do go to the, I guess, most harsh or restrictive measures to deal with it, where it does not have to be that way, because there is a skill that they can learn and need to learn in order to manage that aggression, because it's coming from somewhere. It didn't just befall them. Okay. And so putting in place a behavior plan in that situation is critical. And I would say starting with asking the school to develop a crisis plan. And so what that would look like would be figuring out what are the triggers to these aggressive outbursts for this student. Now that is going to take collaboration with the student, the parent, and whomever is working with that student, because everybody has a different angle or view of observation of what that is. But most importantly, the student has to be involved. And there's so many times where I see people come up with these elaborate plans and you ain't even talked to the student. How are you going to develop a plan for me and you haven't talked to me? So so starting there to develop a crisis plan and what crisis is, these are specific ways to engage with this person when they do enter into that aggressive state of mind. Because when I become that way, I don't have the same level of rationality. So you can't approach me like you would if I'm in a calm state. Okay. But when you get the input from that person, they can tell you what they need and what they don't want. And sometimes we do the opposite. So if I don't like to be touched, why am I going to come up and touch you on your shoulder? Come calm down, man. I'm getting ready to go swing. Okay. Because you have violated something that I don't like. So that's only going to come with familiarity and talking with that student. So starting with a basic crisis plan. Secondly, whomever the adults are that are involved with that student, making sure that they are developing a relationship with that person. And I say that because there are times, and I have witnessed this so many times, where someone is attempting to de-escalate a situation and they don't know this person from Adam. Okay. And they may be the trigger and not know it because you don't know this person. So I would say in the context of a school setting, having people responding to that crisis that have a relationship with their student, because they're more likely to listen versus if it's just somebody off the street. For a parent, I would say if you get a phone call in a moment like that, if you know that you are able to help de-escalate your child with your voice, have them put you on speaker and talk. Now, if you know you are a trigger, okay, then leave yourself out of it for that moment, okay, and then you come back around and address it, later. But I would just say starting with that planning, that behavior planning, the crisis planning is a step. But there may be need to have wraparound services, depending on how intense that aggressive behavior is and, the root of it. They may need to have outside professional counseling. There's different programs. You may need to involve them in something that is going to tap into another side for them. So it could be sports, it could be music, it could be some
outlet.
Anger and aggression, then it has to go somewhere. Okay. So those are just basics, but I would say, just like I talked about with the elementary student, At a high school age, they still may have to learn emotional vocabulary, okay? And being taught how to regulate and recognize what is happening with me. And that can come from anybody. They don't have to be a licensed counselor to give someone emotional vocabulary. It's just a matter of sitting there, like you said, with a feelings chart, and you can have faces on it. I might not need to use words, like point to the face that you identify with right now, because that's a start in helping them to be able to communicate their needs.
Whew, good stuff. Good stuff. I hope, I'm just so hopeful that, this conversation is providing some insight. I'm hoping it provides you a sense of relief if you are a parent and you have that child that is struggling with behavior or struggling with, anger or what have you, that first of all, there are educators that know and that are aware and that are skilled to provide that support. Not everyone is against your child, but at the same time, we do recognize that there is a need. And so we want to be intentional about providing that need. Academics, yes, we want to get them to where they're scoring wonderful and doing great and all that. But there's also that behavioral side that's just as important, because you can be as smart as all outdoors, but it won't help you if you're not able to progress in life because you're not able to get along with others. And so you're talking about the way that your quality of life can be impacted because of not being able to regulate emotions or what have you. So I know we're just about out of time. This has been so phenomenal, Ms. Muhammad. You have just shared such a wealth of information. I'm trying to go through and see what I can pull out, one last golden nugget that I can pull out of my bag. As a teacher, let me just speak. So we talked about parents in school, but what tips do you have for a teacher who has, this student in their classroom that's disruptive or, is easily triggered, and maybe they have a supportive parent or not? What are some words that you can give to a teacher to sort of help them stay motivated and inspired to provide supports for that student and not check out, and just kind of push them to the corner and act as if they don't exist? But what words, final words, would you have for a teacher that has a classroom with some challenging students?
So for a teacher, what I would say first off is not to take it personal. I know that it's easier. It sounds harder or easy. I'm saying it easy, but it's hard to do, but not to take it personal, because most of the time the behaviors there that you are seeing have nothing to do with you. So remaining in a framework of this student is dealing with something, like reminding yourself there's something underlying this, and this is not my fault. This is not something I'm doing. Secondly to that would be focus on that relationship. Developing a relationship with a person will save you like so much struggle, because they will develop a certain level of respect for you that just when they hear your voice or you say something or you could walk in a room, it will change how they're getting ready to do something, because they have that much respect for you. So I would say the relationship. And I know some people are like, well, how do I build a relationship? It's just as simple as getting to know parts of them that have nothing to do with, my academic work. And sometimes you may have to share parts of you, because with young people, they have to be able to trust you. So if you are not authentic in how you present, they're going to see right through that, and they're going to come for you. So I would say be authentic, develop relationships, have a support system, okay, and making sure, like, in dealing with that person, because it can lead to burnout if you constantly dealing with that behavior over and over. So have a support system within the school and with outside the school, and a strong self-care regimen, okay, for yourself, so that when you come in, you're able to continue to pour into that person because you have it, and not coming in depleted. And that will make a difference. And then second to that, the classroom environment itself also serves as a space that could help a person just calm down just by how you have it laid out. So I would say stay away from clutter and too much stuff everywhere, because if somebody is already dealing with, whether it's ADHD, depression, anxiety, when you have an overstimulated environment, that can trigger and aggravate things just because it's stuff everywhere. So
Everywhere.
keep it simple, keep it as simple as possible. Do some research on colors can change people's emotion or affect their emotions. So do some research on using certain colors in your classroom of things that are going to create calmness versus igniting, too much excitement. But those just are some small nuggets. There's a lot more, but just start with that and just remember that relationship piece.
That's so good. I don't think people connect behavior to the classroom culture and classroom environment. I know we talk a lot about that, but I love the way that you talked about just the way the classroom layout. How do you have things organized? You don't want to have bright red everywhere, and then you wonder why you got a room full of anxious kids, So you do want to do research if you're noticing and increasing, negative behaviors in the classroom. You want to look at, what do I need to change maybe in the room, or do I need to change the setup? What can you do to help facilitate a more calming space that's safe, and that embraces that student as they walk into the classroom. And the other thing that you pointed out too, several good points, awesome points, is not taking it personally. I can't tell you how many times I've been cursed out and told you blank, 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 blank. And, you do have to separate the deed from the doer and rationally detach, because I have a mortgage and I like to travel. So I need my job and I really like to be free. So I don't need to go to jail. You know what I'm saying? So it is a matter of not only are we expecting our students to understand their emotions and to regulate themselves as adults, as the professionals, we've got to model that as well. And so we can't go tit for tat and have power struggles, because kids' memories are long and they don't forget. When you've forgotten about it, they're going to come right back. And now we're in the days where the digital eye never sleeps. And so you've got cameras on you everywhere. So the last thing you want to do is flip out. And then you have to continue to relive that moment in social media. So, hats off to teachers. This is a very, I don't want to say difficult, but it's a different season to teach in. Very, very different season to teach in. And so for those of you who are educators, I know we talked a lot about, advocating for parents and empowering parents, but at the same token, we also want to acknowledge the hard work that our teachers put forth every day to support students. You're talking about being in a classroom for 6 hours for the most part, or, maybe 5, considering your planning, but you're there and you're that person that student sees every day, all day. And so it's going to be essential that relationships are built from the onset, so that you can avoid being a trigger, and more so be a safe space for your student. Ms. Muhammad, how can, if a parent wants to contact you, maybe they want to reach out to you for services or therapy for their student, or for themselves for that matter, or maybe a teacher wants to reach out to you to help them develop strategies for their classroom or for their students, how can they reach out? How can they connect with you?
Through via email, it would be the quickest way. Specifically for the therapy part, definitely email. With the teacher, like I'll share my number. I don't know, do you want me to put it in? I guess we on this Zoom. In the
you
chat.
put in the comments, I don't think they're gonna see it.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, so email, or I will provide a phone number where you can reach me. So my direct email address, and this email is not connected to any entity, but it will go straight to me. It's Ayanah, AYANAH, Muhammad, MUHAMMAD @gmail.com. And then the number that you could reach me at would be 980-800-3055. And, I'll be able to connect with you and help you with anything or answer any questions that you may have regarding your student.
Awesome. And I'll make sure that I'll go back in and add that to the comments as well. Thank you so much, Ms. Muhammad, just for the time that you've taken, and the insight, the wisdom, all of the strategies that you shared, and just being able to touch where some of our parents may be. I'm sure some of them are not everybody is happy about going to school. You know, some of our parents are really struggling. Like, here we go again. I got to deal with this again. Some of our students are struggling too. You know, why I got to go back, or can I do something different? So we want you to know that, you know, we hear you, we understand, we feel where you are. And we, you know, wanted to help provide some strategies and resources and empower you to advocate for your student this year, but also empower our educators so that you understand what that looks like for that student on the home side as well. They're caught in between two, the performance at school and performance at home. And sometimes, you know, those both can be very troubling. So my hope and my goal tonight is that we provided some strategies and resources to help you catapult your student to have a very successful year. Again, reach out to us if you have any questions or concerns, and we hope to bring Ms. Muhammad back at a later time and maybe talk about some more interventions and or maybe to answer some of the questions that you guys have submitted. So Ms. Muhammad, thank you once again for your time. And to each of our guests and so forth, we thank you, and we hope that you have a wonderful evening. And to our students, have a phenomenal new school year. All right. Good night, everybody.
All right. Good night.